Hello and welcome to this edition of the India Development Debate. No stopping the Modi juggernaut. The Prime Minister's popularity is only on the rise. A survey done by US-based think tank Pew Research finds that Modi remains the most popular leader in India. If the survey findings are anything to go by, the 2019 general election could well be a cakewalk for the saffron combined. Consider this, more than 80% of the people polled think that the Indian economy is in good shape, and around 70% feel the country is making rapid strides in global sweepstakes.
The only flip side is the fact that the findings are based on a study done between December 2016 and March of this year, months before, of course, the GST was rolled out. Also, there are questions about the sample size of just 2464 respondents, which is under 2,500, with many now saying that it's too small to capture the mood of a country as vast as ours. Interestingly, it's the South, a traditionally weak turf for the BJP, which has voted overwhelmingly in favor of Prime Minister Modi. The survey findings raise some really big questions. Is a Modi comeback in 2019 now inevitable? Can a resurgent Rahul pose any serious challenge to the Saffron Brigade? The Modi factor and what it means to the Indian politics and economy is our big debate right here on the India Development Debate. Joining us on the show, we've got Ruben Ibrahim, CEO and Senior Fellow, IDFC Institute, R. Jagannathan, Editorial Director, Swaraj Magazine, Swaminathan Iyer, Consulting Editor, ET Now, Sambit Patra, Spokesperson of the BJP, and Sanjay Jha, National Spokesperson of the Congress. Thanks to each one of you for being with us right here on the show this evening. And Jaggi, if I may begin with you, 3 years in office and looks like Modi is unstoppable. The magic doesn't seem to be waning. Do you see this? Does this come as a surprise? This whole overwhelming praise for the Prime Minister, given there is a lot of water that has now flown under the bridge. And just for the benefit of our viewers, I'm going to point this out once again. This has been done between December of last year to March of this year. So this is post-demonetization, yes, but pre-GST. Jaggi.
Yes, I mean, it's not at all surprising because polls have consistently, after 2014, 15, 16 and all through 17, have always shown Mr. Modi to be considerably more popular than his party, and that has been a national phenomenon. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it's by the end of his term, he actually compares much better than his predecessor in NDA, that is Atal Bihari Vajpayee. I think he is now in the league of Nehru and Indira Gandhi, and in a league of his own more recently, because he's a more effective communicator as well. However, from this we should not jump to conclusions that 2019 is in the bag, because political personal popularity because of a Prime Minister is well thought of all over the country is not the same thing as translating into votes at where local issues and more specifically the glitches that happened in the last few months over demonetization and then GST. These all will feed through to local level issues, which I think is being, we will know after Gujarat whether that will translate to specific votes. So I would say that Modi's popularity is not going to diminish, but whether it means that his party will come back to power in 2019, that's a different thing. Remember, Vajpayee was very powerful and also very popular in early 2004, but he lost the election. A lot of things depend on many other factors, including the allies you pick up on the way. So, but it's a good indicator, and we should know maybe by December, January, and if another poll is done, we will know where he stands and his party does.
Ruben, is it fair to extrapolate this and the survey of a very small sample of under 2,500 people and conclude that the mood is overwhelmingly in favor of Prime Minister Modi and in favor of this government? Is that a fair extrapolation to make?
Yeah, so I think the criticism that it's a very small sample is actually false, because when you look at attitude surveys globally, this is approximately the sample size that you'll see. So if you look at, for instance, pre-election surveys in the US, the numbers are not that much bigger than this. So I don't think that is the problem. The real problem is when you unpack the methodology, you will actually see that there's a fairly significant urban skew in it, which Pew claims to have actually controlled for. The problem is the methodology doesn't go further to actually tell you how they've controlled for it. So that's the one thing to sort of keep in mind in terms of the instrument design, but I don't think the sample size is necessarily a problem. I think the bigger issue is the one that you flagged at the very beginning, which is that the time at which the survey was undertaken. And so to me, that particular time period is basically when the Prime Minister was at peak popularity. Demonetization had just kicked in, UP elections. I think he was riding the crest of a wave at that point. So the real question is, post some of the implementation struggles with GST, some of the troubles with demonetization, does his popularity still hold today? I think that's the key question. So I think Jaggi's point about whether if we did a survey of the similar survey today, would we see the similar numbers? I think that's really the question. But let me just add one other thing here, which is that when we look at the global context, you know, very often, especially in the international media, you see Prime Minister Modi being clubbed along with other strongmen like, you know, including President Trump in the US, Turkey, etc. But you will see that in no other context is the Prime Minister or the President as popular as Mr. Modi is. I mean, so I think that sets him apart from anyone else that he's been compared with.
Fair point indeed, and I think that popularity seems to be very intact. But Sanjay Jha, I'm going to come to you. Is the Congress party going to dismiss this survey for the sample size? Because you're hearing it from experts that this is the standard sample size that's taken globally for attitude surveys like this. Are you going to find your solace there, or are you actually going to do some soul searching?
Supriya, personally, I have no objection to the sample size because the Gallup poll very often does its sampling on a much smaller number. As long as the sample is representative of a larger populace, I think it justifies itself. You know, but the point I wish to make, Supriya, is that a week is a very long time in politics. And you're talking about a survey which was done around February or March this year, which is almost 8-9 months ago. And I can tell you that things have changed dramatically on ground. And it's not just because of, you know, the failure of a monumental disaster of demonetization or the extremely pathetic governance in the way GST has been executed, or the fact that Aadhaar today is becoming another oppressive draconian regime being created by the government. I think overall, I would say if these numbers flatter the BJP, I would use the term it's like a Pyrrhic victory.
Okay, fair enough. But you know, the first point that you make, I'm going to take that on board. It's a point that Ruben Abraham made as well. Samit Patra, while obviously the BJP has reasons to celebrate the findings of the survey, we must not lose sight of three key factors. One, that happened before the rollout of GST. Two, that happened before the economic slowdown, the acute economic slowdown kicked in. And three, before the nation really got to know the findings of the demonetization. January, February was still a period when people were largely in support of demonetization because people thought that black money will return to the economy. That hasn't happened because bulk of the money that was demonetized has come back into the system. So much has changed between then and now. How would you counter this charge, Samit Patra?
See, as far as Sandeep, as far as this whole debate is concerned, there are two core concerns. The concern number one is the popularity of Mr. Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister and as the leader of this country. And the second important issue is the direction into which this country is heading towards. Both, in fact, has been more than satisfactory as far as this Pew survey is concerned. Look, as far as the popularity of Mr. Modi is concerned, it has been, what amuses me rather, I would say, Sandeep, that since 2013, this has been a constant debate and discussion whether Mr. Modi wave is there, whether it has declined. Now, what is going to happen to the Modi wave now that the UP election has come? Probably it is finished. But each time we have an election on the ground, leave aside the sample size of 2,500 or 2,400, where we have 22 crores in Uttar Pradesh, people of this country have answered time and again that he is the most popular leader of the contemporary India. Secondly, as far as the direction of the economy, etc., of the country is concerned, well, if this whole sampling took place, if this whole survey took place somewhere between February and March of this year, I firmly believe that was the time when most of the opposition had come not as an amorphous group but as a core group. If you would remember, Mamata Banerjee, Farooq Abdullah and all the leaders including Mr. Rahul Gandhi saying that demonetization was a devastation, and in fact the Bharatiya Janata Party is going to finish itself in Uttar Pradesh election also. So naturally that was not the truth. The survey speaks volumes about it.
Jaggi, I'm going to ask you the same question. You know, Samit Patra says demonetization was taken very well by the people. They were appreciative of the fact. But the results came only later. A lot of people then thought that black money will be unearthed and people will be taken to task. We figured out that a lot of the money came back to the system. GST has turned out to be a painful exercise, an exercise that's warranted but still a painful exercise. Would things be very different if it was done today?
No, I would certainly think that there would be some decline in his popularity if things are seen as going badly in the economy and jobs are being lost, or if the growth is coming down and traders and prices are going up and because of GST, and everything will be blamed on GST. So in that sense, there will be a sense of upsurge and dissatisfaction which is possible, but I think demonetization is a dead horse. It's over and gone. I don't think people are ever going to blame Narendra Modi for demonetization. They will see it more in terms of what is happening today in terms of jobs or growth and how their own livelihoods and incomes are affected. So to the demonetization is done and dusted. I doubt if it is anybody is going to blame demonetization for it. At the most, people may actually credit Modi for trying it out. So you have to look at growth and other factors for which people might express some dissatisfaction, and we have to see how the government manages the perception. But there is also a disconnect, in fact, a thing between Modi's own popularity and what happens to the economy. Because I think Modi over the last 3.5 years has clearly established himself as somebody who is sincere in his efforts to do the right thing. So his popularity and votes actually can be little different, because votes depend on a lot of local issues, and you can rake up local issues and say that, look, this thing is not going right, that thing is not going right, you need reservations, you need caste issues, those things will keep coming up, which will not be impacted directly by Modi's popularity. So if your direct presidential election, I don't see him as being capable of losing in 2019, but 2019 will be a bunch of state elections and not just Modi. So we will actually have to wait and see for that, and we will have to see how he manages the transition from today's difficult economic phase to 2018 and later. So that's the critical period, and I don't think his popularity would be dented substantially today, even assuming you have these problems.
Okay, fair enough. You know, Sanjay Jha, while I agree, you know, demonetization is a dead horse and we've flogged it till no end, but I do want to place on record that while you could argue that this survey happened before GST kicked in and before the full effect of the economic slowdown was visible to the nation as a whole, it happened at the peak of the demonetization issue, at the height of when the common man was inconvenienced, at the height of when people felt the jobs were being lost, the informal sector was being devastated, and yet 80% of the people believed that economic conditions in the country are good. What do you attribute this to? Is there something that the Congress party and the critics of the Prime Minister and critics of this government are missing here in terms of his ability to capture the imagination of the people of this country? Sanjay Jha.
You know, Sandeep, I do believe that this appears to be a very glaring fault line of the Pew survey. And I'll tell you why. Because, you know, forget the stock market, you know, being flush with money, and all stock markets across the world have done well. But the, you know, the economic fundamentals completely belie any attempt by the finance ministry to paint a rosy picture. I mean, it's not just about exports being, you know, terribly low even today, although the world economy actually has done better. You have a situation where jobs, I mean, I don't want to even get into it. I think we all know that, you know, when you have 15 lakh jobs being lost, add another 4 lakhs which were lost by official data. Now, it's telling you a very, very clear message that Mr. Modi's personal credibility is actually now under serious threat.
Swami, I'm going to throw the same question to you. While we can continue to question the sample size, the timing, and, you know, have things changed post demonetization and GST, the fact is that this survey happened at the peak of the crisis when people were queuing up for their own money, and yet 80% of them after demonetization believe that the economic conditions in this country are good. Jobs have been lost, economic growth has dipped, and yet people believe that the economy seems to be on the right track. What are we missing here? Swami.
I would say that, okay, I think the point is well made that 8-9 months is a long time. This particular poll was taken in February, March. It can be argued things have got worse since. The glitches following GST have been significant and dismayed a number of people who thought the launch would be very good. I was talking to somebody in the textile industry who claimed that, you know, within 6 months, 50 lakh guys may lose their jobs unless something is done to change the rate. I said, some things have turned for the worse since this particular poll was done. That said, I would still say that even if you discount that particular thing, without doubt, I would say Mr. Narendra Modi is holding his own in terms of overall popularity. And while the economy may not be doing as well as perhaps people thought was the case in February, March, I would say it is still doing well enough, probably, that if a new poll was taken, people would still tell you that it's roughly on the right track. It is true that there are a number of worrying signs in place A, place B, and place C. There are also positives. I mean, the exports did very badly in the last month, but in the previous 2 months they had done really pretty well. GST has caused a number of glitches, yes. On the other hand, without doubt, the abolition of checkposts has been a huge relief, has been a huge improvement. So, you know, some things have also improved, you might say, since February, March, even while others have gone wrong. So I would say this much, that is the economy on the right track? Well, this is going to be a bad year. The combined disruption of GST and demonetization is going to make 2017 a slow growth year. But from that low base, I would expect 2018 to actually become a relatively good year. Again, will that be sustained or not? I'm not quite sure. But all the negatives that you are seeing, most of them seem to me to be transitional. If the world economy continues to improve at the rate that it is continuing, while 2017 is going to be a bad year for the economy and for the BJP, I would imagine 2018 would be a much better year for the economy and for the BJP, in which case another Pew poll, if you take it February, March next year, I wouldn't be surprised if you get a similar kind of result.
Right. Swami, you're making it a lot easier for Sambit Patra. I thought you were going to help us put him on the mat, but you know, Sambit Patra, the fact remains, the point that Sanjay Jha made is that on ground, as of today, things aren't great. You know, the economy is growing at 5.7%. There is an acute jobs crisis, and I'll come to that in detail in a bit. There is an acute jobs crisis. The SME sector is under acute stress. There are a lot of pain points, and a week, like Sanjay Jha says, a long time in politics. 8 months, a lot of water has flown under the bridge. Do you at least concede that the government has to get its economic act in order and quickly for the Prime Minister to maintain this level of popularity? Sambit Patra.
See, Sandeep, there are two important points over here which I always mention, that preparedness should never be taken as a demerit. It's always a merit. If one is not complacent, if one is working hard day in and day out, and if one is trying to improve not only the economy of this country, but the direction in which the country is moving every day, every night, I think that is something which we should be seeing as a merit. And the problem over here with the Congress party particularly is, and why I think we should be assured, that the Congress party is looking into the fault lines of the surveys, the fault lines of the elections, the election machines, the EVMs, but they somehow are missing the real fault line. They are missing the fault line which lies with their leader, and that I think is reassuring as far as Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned. Coming to implementation glitches of the GST that has been talked in detail over here, let me tell you, people of this country are extremely intelligent. Though we may consider that what the Congress says, that GST should not have been implemented now because 40% of the country does not have the internet services. Many people are not educated, only submitting their own report cards every evening. But let me tell you, despite all these, people of this country are extremely intelligent. They realize that if you implement, only then you have glitches. And well, yes, the Modi government is listening to the people. They are clarifying, they are talking, they are improving upon the glitches. And we had seen recently, after the 23rd meeting in Guwahati, as to how 178 items were removed from the slab of 28% and brought to a lower slab. So naturally, this is being seen by the people, and that's why the word direction means extremely important. The direction in the yesteryears, when the people, largely 70% people, were dissatisfied because they realized that the only direction in which the leaders then thought of was to enrich themselves. Corruption was the talk of the town. Every second leader was enriching oneself by loot and by corruption. But over here, the Prime Minister is trying his best to improve the way the country thinks. And that is why I say, please don't underestimate country's consciousness.
Okay, I have a quick question for Ruben, but before that, I think Sanjay Jha wants to make a quick point there. Sanjay, make it brief, please.
Yeah, all I want to say is that political arrogance often turns out to be one of the most disastrous traits of any political party. Good luck to Mr. Patra's party. But this continuous ridiculing of Mr. Gandhi has clearly boomeranged on the BJP. I always tell that Smriti Irani ji is now the new PR manager for Mr. Gandhi. End of day, the point is that people of India are very, very sensitive, extremely smart. They have begun to sense already, and I'm telling you, I'm getting ground reports from Gujarat. People have figured out that I want a leader who's not flamboyant,
Sanjay,
who's not indulging in the usual fake promises. They are liking Mr. Gandhi's genuine, sincere
Sanjay,
attempt to bring changes at the ground level.
Gandhi, and I will come and
I think
address
you're headed for a very, very
Sanjay,
exciting
I have
political
questions on
space
Rahul
in
Gandhi, and I will come and
2018.
address that. No, I'm not going to let this report.
How cute.
No, I'm not going to let this show be hijacked by Rahul Gandhi discussion. We will address that issue, and I promise you we will, because that's going to be one of the areas that we will talk about. But Ruben, what's startling about this survey really is people acknowledge the problem. 73% say lack of employment opportunities is a challenge, and yet 72% approve the government's handling of the job crisis. How do the two add up? 3 years into office, they have not been able to create the jobs. Is this about having absolutely implicit blind faith in the ability of the Prime Minister to be able to do something?
Well, I mean, there is no doubt that the Prime Minister is a communicator like no one else I certainly have seen. So his ability to transcend party politics and speak directly to people, in my opinion, is second to none. So that may be playing a role. But also keep in mind the fact that, I mean, clearly there is a skew in the survey, and that may also be reflected in some of the stuff that you're hearing. I mean, the one that really strikes me as pretty incredible is the fact that if you look at the map of India, the lowest approval is actually coming from the northern states, and the highest approval is coming from the southern states. He's got 95% approval in the southern states and 84% in the northern states, when in fact, if you look at the 2014 elections, something upwards of 80% of the total tally of seats came from what you could broadly speak call the northern states. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that is mixed up. So which is why, like any other survey, you should take this survey as well with a grain of salt.
Jaggi, come in on that, because this government came to power on the promise of jobs. Achhe din is what the Prime Minister promised, and if you were to judge this government purely on the benchmark of creating jobs, they failed miserably. And the people of this country acknowledge that there is a jobs crisis. The thing is, they're not faulting the government for it. They believe it could be because of technology or whatever. At least let's assume that this survey has an urban skew. Even then, I would imagine there would be a lot of angst in the urban class as well, where there are a lot of layoffs happening. People aren't faulting the government for it. Why do you believe are the people, giving the government and the Prime Minister a long rope? Is it because they believe that there are structural factors at play here, and it's unfair to expect this government and one Prime Minister to fix them all in 3 years?
You see, the problem with people being concerned about jobs is not something that surfaced in 2017. You look at every single survey from 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, the noughties. There has been no survey conducted in India which has ever said that unemployment and jobs is not a problem. So the point is, in a nation where about 470 million people have jobs of some kind, or at least a gig for a couple of months, people know that jobs are a permanent problem. So this marginal shifts like 1 million lost during new monetization and all, where registers as barely a blip in the overall sense that we don't have productive paying employment. So that's like a perennial. It's been there for a very long time, and Garibi Hatao and all kinds of things, nothing has changed. But still Indira Gandhi kept coming back to power at various points in time. So the point is that Mr. Modi has not been able to structurally shift the job market to something that is more creative of new jobs is what is the problem. It is not that he has destroyed any more jobs than anybody else in the past. We have a labor legislation that continues to remain the ancient ones. So I think he will not be judged purely on this promise of jobs, because everybody promises jobs and doesn't deliver. So it is just occasionally when growth goes up due to exogenous factors, like you saw between 2003 and 2011, then suddenly jobs do go up because there is a certain natural bullishness to all markets. But the point is, people will not judge him purely by jobs, because that has been there with us for a long time. What they will judge him by is by whether he is attempting to do a lot of things and whether at the time they go and vote, their sense of improvement in well-being compared to 5 years ago is a little better or not.
Okay, the expectation of him being able to deliver will be important. Swami, Modi's lowest rating is for his handling of communal relations. Do you believe that's the big area where the government needs to focus on, rein in the lumpen elements both within and outside the political system, get its messaging right? Because clearly the survey that supports Modi and his popularity quite remarkably doesn't seem to believe he's handling the communal relations part of it well.
Well, if you look at what the Pew survey says, the communal relations thing, the extent of satisfaction with the government is one of the lowest. But the question is, how important is this compared with all the other parameters? I personally think that the atmosphere has deteriorated very badly. I have come across Muslims who are, I mean, there's a general feeling of threat. There's a general feeling that by virtue of being a Muslim, I am unsafe. At any point of time, I can be attacked with impunity. I have talked to Christians who say that, you know, we are keeping a low profile, but we also feel under threat. Every day in the community, we hear 1 or 2 incidents. We don't want to shout about it. It doesn't get us anywhere. To me, these are signs of a very unhealthy society. Will it make a difference for the next election? Probably not. Will it make a difference to the economy? Probably not at this particular point. But in the longer term, if we have an erosion of our institutions, there are any number of studies who show that with eroding institutions, you do ultimately pay an economic price as well. And I would say the idea of equality before the law, that it doesn't matter what your religion is, you must be treated on par, everybody must be equally safe, security must extend to everybody. That right now is, from my point of view, is a major failure of the Modi government. I don't think it will cost him very much in votes in the short run, but it is a worry for the longer term.
Okay, so I know Sambit Patra, Sanjay Jha both want to come in. I'm going to let Sambit come in first with the political counter, because Sambit Swaminathan Iyer, one of this country's finest commentators, has raised a genuine concern. He's saying it may not cost you politically. It's clearly not costing you politically. It's not even affecting the popularity of the Prime Minister, but it's something that this government needs to work on. Sambit Patra, 30 seconds, and then I'm going to Sanjay Jha.
See, respectfully, I would differ from Mr. Swaminathan over here, because of the very reason that, look, if the communal tension prevails in the society, nothing else matters. You may be having a very good air quality, you may be having employment, you may be having the economy moving in the right direction, but if there are people burning your house, then nothing matters. So I think this is contradictory. I have the report with me which says that 50% of Indians are satisfied with the communal status of country. I believe 50% is more than half of this country. I mean, because we have created an atmosphere which I would say is a manufactured one, saying that, well, Bharatiya Janata Party government is not catering to the Muslims, etc., etc., Gaurakshak, etc. All these have manufactured an atmosphere for which probably some people may have shown some amount of restraint while answering in affirmative as far as this column is concerned. But most importantly, remember, I mean, popularity would take the worst dent if there was communal tension in the country. That the popularity of Mr. Modi as the leader is only soaring ahead and not taking a dent only shows that whatever we are talking about is mostly manufactured and is not real on the ground.
You've taken 48 seconds to be precise, Sanjay Jha. You're not going to get a second more than that. Your quick rebuttal to the point that is being made by Sambit Patra, and if you want to add on to what Swami said.
Yeah, you know, Supriya, let me tell you that the BJP's strategy has always been to try and use development as a pretext to show its larger apparent, effort to try and develop India. But communal temperature being maintained at a certain level, which gives them political dividend, is very much core strategy for them. Don't forget that, in India Shining 2004, they had 1 year's GDP of 8%, but the people were aware of what happened in Gujarat in 2002. I think end of day, like it or not, this is a secular democracy. this is a country which I think ought to feel very proud for the kind of religious melange that we have here. And I think it's something that we should be very proud of, and not allow any government, any political party to hijack what, frankly speaking, is our fundamental right to coexist together. I do believe that the BJP has actually, I completely agree with Swami, I think the BJP has played its game in an extremely crude fashion.
Robin, I'm coming to you because this is another very interesting finding of the survey. The clamor for strong leadership is almost scary at one level. 55% like the idea of rule by strong men, 50% say military rule will be good, 65% believe India could benefit from the rule of unelected experts. Is this a sign of erosion of faith in the political class, a revolt against status quo? And has Prime Minister Modi benefited by positioning himself as an outsider, as someone outside of the quote-unquote establishment?
Yeah, so when I looked at the survey in detail, this is the bit that actually really struck out for me, which is the preference for autocratic government. So I think the reason is quite clear, which is the breakdown of the institutional capacity of the state to actually deliver public goods. And so therefore, when you see such a institutional breakdown, then you begin to look for alternatives. And so therefore, a lot of these other alternatives begin to look very attractive, especially when the comparison is then made to China, where it seems like a quasi-autocratic government can actually deliver public goods much better. However, I would caution against that sort of idea. Yes, it may pay dividends in the short run, but it will prove costly in the long run. I think this country has been served extremely well by the sort of democratic mechanism that we've had, just given the very high heterogeneity of the country itself.
On that note, we're going to step into a short break here in the India development debate. But on the other side, we're going to put the spotlight on the change realities on the ground, increased buzz about Rahul Gandhi and popularity of Rahul Gandhi. Could that be a counter to the enormous popularity of Prime Minister Modi? That's what we're going to talk about on the other side. Keep it with the India development debate.
Jaggi, since the time of the survey, we've also seen some kind of a re-emergence, if I may call it for a lack of another word, of Rahul Gandhi. He's getting some traction on social media. The ridicule has gone down. There are some who are speaking in favor. Hawa badal rahi hai, like they say. Do you believe that that's a reflection of reality on the ground, or is this just a creation of social media and maybe media at large?
No, I think given the fact that this year has been a difficult one economically, given two major disruptive changes, demonetization and thing, there has been some basic ground level traction. Also, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has changed his way of delivering things, I think especially in the last 1 or 2 years, where I think he has chosen trite phrases in order to get a point across, and it seems to be working. At a time when people are feeling a level of discomfort with how the economy is heading, what he is trying to say is striking some sort of a chord. Whether it will deliver big results or less, we cannot say as yet. But Gujarat will probably show a pointer. But I think what he has done is, I think he is coming across. See, I think he is coming across as a contrast to Mr. Modi, who is a very powerful, good communicator. He is coming across as the boy next door who is providing gentle homilies and all that. So I think that contrast is showing up in some ways. And people are saying, okay, we need to listen here as well. Though it does not in any way diminish Modi's popularity, but I think people are willing to listen there because he's saying that, look, I too have some points to make, why don't you listen to me? And he's coming across a little better than he used to earlier, where he looked like a spoiled brat who was just saying something and disappearing for months on end. But this time he is actually there out in the trenches, going with his party, and I think his way of dealing with issues is also changing.
Sure.
So some of that is certainly positive for Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and I would think so.
Okay. So he's got his political messaging right, and it's not just a media creation, says Jaggi. Samit Patra, the BJP has, over a period of time, consciously painted him as an object of ridicule. I mean, you have gone to no length as a party to ridicule Rahul Gandhi, and let's not sort of make any bones about it. Is the BJP underestimating the potential of Rahul Gandhi?
Let me tell you, who are we as the party to underestimate anyone or to convert anyone into an object of ridicule? It's the people of this country at the end of the day who matter. And if Rahul Gandhi has lost the charm of being a real leader, it is because of the people of this country. I mean, I get amused occasionally as to for how many years, in fact, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has to be given this long rope, this long chance to prove that, well, yes, he also does carry a medal. I mean, every election that we have been having since 2012 becomes an examination for Mr. Narendra Modi, and we have discussions whether the popularity of Mr. Narendra Modi has gone down or whether the wave of Narendra Modi is going to sustain yet another election. While after all these electioneering that we had seen after 2012, every election has been lost by the Congress party under Mr. Rahul Gandhi, yet we in television debates are ready to give him a chance. It only shows that we may try our best, but he's not going to. See, I personally believe that a leader is born leader. You cannot tailor a leader. You cannot tailor a Rahul Gandhi just because he has a phrase here, a phrase there, which is picked up by his team behind. That does not make him a leader. He's a failed leader. A failed leader is a failed leader, will always be a failed leader.
संबित पात्रा retweets हो रहे हैं and कुछ traction हो रहा है. You can't live in denial, but I will let Sanjay Jha come in and counter you on that, because there seems to be some traction, the messaging, the sarcasm, there's something that's happening out there. Sanjay Jha, 30 seconds to counter that, because I will not let you hijack Rahul Gandhi on this.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, I congratulate Patra and his party for their political hubris. Wait and watch. There's a lot of things that are going to play out in the political space. As far as Mr. Gandhi is concerned, I will tell you only one thing, Supriya. I think end of day, people of India have discovered they want to talk to leaders in our country who are genuine, who care, who have compassion in the way they actually address the issues, and more important, who fundamentally are involved far beyond the superficial rhetoric. I think, you know, when people disengage with a leader whom they have trusted, I can tell you it happens at a very, very rapid and a galloping pace. And today, I think the big turnaround is simple, is very straightforward. Mr. Gandhi has always been what we have called as a marathon man. He's a long distance runner, and he's gone through the hard times.
Right.
He's gone through the times when people have questioned many of his capabilities, but today he's the beacon of hope. He is somebody who's connecting with the young, and I think I can see the restlessness, I can see the tension on Sambit Patra and the BJP. Good luck, we'll face you on the battlefield.
30 seconds are over, Sanjay Jha. Now I'm going to talk and you will listen to me. Listen to me. I know Rahul Gandhi is somebody who looks affable. The guy next door, like Jaggi pointed out, people want to have a conversation with him. I think the Congress would want people to start voting for him, and that is where the difference lies. Anyways.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Supriya. But Swami, coming to you first. So in that case, is Gujarat going to be a litmus test for Rahul Gandhi? And at one level, even for the Prime Minister and for the BJP, after demonetization, after GST, which has hit the trader community, or and that's a very strong constituency in Gujarat. If the BJP does well, if the margin of victory, if they were to win and were to have a good margin of victory, is that a litmus test in many ways? A far more important assembly election than any other one.
I don't see Rahul Gandhi as being the critical factor here. The party itself has a problem. The image of the Congress party was that of this party, which is a money-making machine going from scam to scam, and then trying to buy off the public with various sops of various kinds, but ultimately being a hollow party which cannot be believed, which will not deliver and has no credibility. Rahul Gandhi has inherited this particular party, and he is not going to be able to change the situation very much. We have seen in state election after state election, there have sometimes been surprises, but I don't think any of the surprises have redounded to the credit of the Congress party. The BJP did very badly in the Delhi state election and the Bihar state election. Nobody would claim that was on account of the Congress party. It was on account of other factors. So I think the people of India can be pretty forgiving. A time may come when, the memories of the Congress connection with the scams fades. At that particular point, I think the party may be better placed to come back. At this particular point, whatever Rahul Gandhi says or does, whether he tweets this or he tweets that, I don't think is going to make very much of a difference. You would need a prolonged period of relatively poor performance by the BJP, plus a fading of the memories of the scam-tainted Congress thing. Then, can the Congress come back at some point of time? Yes, it can come back at some point of time. Is that going to be any time in the near future? Absolutely no.
Okay, so Swami is not a firm believer that Gujarat could be won by the Congress party, or in fact Rahul Gandhi will be a factor there. But I'm going to take this to Ruben. And Ruben, what is very certain from the Pew survey, and put Rahul Gandhi and Mr. Modi aside for a minute, is that there is an enormous political capital that the Prime Minister enjoys. The question is he putting it to good use?
Well, I mean, if you ask me my opinion, I think that this is obviously my point of view on this. I think demonetization was a poor use of that political capital. I think there are very, very serious structural reforms that need to be undertaken in this country, which could have really benefited from the Prime Minister using up some of his political capital. So there was a point of time when I used to wonder whether Mr. Modi had lost his risk appetite and the appetite to take on big political risk. Demonetization clearly proved that not to be the case. I mean, he took on a huge political risk. The question is whether that was the most effective use of his political capital, and I think not. I think that should have been used elsewhere.
Jaggi, quickly, one thing that you think the Prime Minister should do 2 years before the elections to do justice to this incredible political capital, because this transcends the 281 seats that the government enjoys in the Lok Sabha. It's far more than that. What's the one thing that you believe the government should do, the Prime Minister should do with his political capital?
I think now he has to use his political capital to do the one thing that this government has not really done for a very long time, which is that it needs to say that, look, the public sector needs to be downsized. And the reason why I am doing it, look at places like Air India, and these are very simple. He's a good communicator. If he can say that, look, I have given this airline 30,000 crores, and with 30,000 crores, I could have created so many jobs. But instead of that, I am mollycoddling some airline pilots and other guys who are earning in lakhs. So, I mean, the point is it's easy to communicate. In fact, it's politically you can communicate the point. Or you look at BSNL. Nobody actually needs a public sector unit in telecom when everybody, the rates are so low and private sector is serving them well. You need to say that, look, I need to get rid of them. Or for that matter, public sector bans. When you can use a Paytm or an Airtel money or anything to get directly to the poor person in the village. Why do you need a public sector bank with a branch which is so expensive and which has expensive guys? I mean, these are the important thing. If he is able to move the needle on public acceptability of privatization, that I think would be a very huge contribution. Vajpayee started it, but it flopped soon after he left. And people thought that was a bad thing to do in front of the parliament. Today, I think the public is ready for that message. And if Modi stakes his political capital to explain that the government need not be in these kinds of business, then I think it would be a tremendous contribution to the Indian economy. He's already done that in some ways with the bankruptcy code, where he says, I am not going to favor guys who don't deliver, who default on loans. Now he can do that with the public sector. So look, the same kind of problem is happening here. These companies are actually robbing you of jobs, of investment, and by swallowing up capital just for a few thousand people who enjoy a cushy life as employees of the public sector. That's where he should invest his political capital.
All right, on that note, completely out of time on this edition of the India Development Debate, then can't thank Swaminathan Iyer, R. Jagannathan, Mr. Ruben, Sambit Patra, Sanjay Jha for sparing time and joining us on this very fascinating debate this evening. It is quite clear that despite 3 years in office and not a great economic track record to boast of, Prime Minister Modi continues to enjoy tremendous goodwill. But besides his unmatched popularity is the lack of a credible alternative also one of the reasons for this sustained rise.
We at ET now believe it is time the Prime Minister uses his political capital to do what he promised, focus on development and create jobs, because post-demonetization and disruptive GST, the economy needs all his attention. Thanks for being with us on the India Development Debate.